How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Patrick. Before we get started, I gotta do this since Repo Man posted his beautiful weather he had in Florida. Where's that? I know I took a screenshot of it. There you go, Mike. Eat your heart out. Real Phil, 15 degrees. Look at the next 7 days. There ain't no sweating here, buddy. So if you want to switch, you want me to come to Florida and you come out here to Ohio, I'm all for it. So just let me know, brother. But anyways, I had to get into that since he had to say that he's sweating out there in Florida while we're living in the Arctic. All in good fun, though. So what I want to get into today, remember this? We thought it was a know-nothing burger. I remember being on a live, watching it. I actually posted it was 11/11 on 11/11. It's really hopeful something happened and nothing happened. But was God trying to show us something? What I want you to see out of this is it's the exact same on the left and the exact same on the right. Okay, so let's get into this. Remember the menorah? We were all looking at Hanukkah. I still love that story of Hanukkah, by the way. It's probably one of my favorite studies that I've done thus far, watching and doing all that. So the middle candle is called the servant candle, and it represents Jesus. Remember, Jesus is always in the midst of everything, and he was in the midst of the menorah. So if you take that out, since that candle lights all the other candles, you have 3 on the right, 3 on the left. So I'm hoping you guys see a pattern here. Now we go here. I think we got to go to, camera. Remember this? This was only a few days ago. This was incredible. Steve Fletcher and Land Down Under and a few other channels that covered it did an amazing job. Look at that. Everything's pointing toward January 11th, but what I want you to see here is it's the exact same number of days on the left and the exact same numbers of days on the right. So just like 11/11, the same number on the left, same number on the right. The menorah, the same amount on the left, same amount on the right. These have all been recent signs that God has given us. And we thought it was like a date, this is all pointing toward January 11th. Now, something did happen on January 11th. We attacked Yemen along with UK, Germany, Canada, and then Russia declared a Security Council meeting, like an emergency Security Council meeting. So that was definitely not what I call a nothing burger. We actually went and bombed Yemen. So that could really escalate stuff in the region. So, but was that all the sign, or was there more to all these eclipses? And that's what we got out of it, was us bombing a few warehouses and some radar posts. I believe that there's more. So where did this all lead us to in our group, in our study? Well, we got to go to our screenshots here. All right, this is Genesis 6:3. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Well, I start thinking, I'm like, okay, well, that's obviously the 120 Jubilees, or the 6,000 years that man allotted, or God allotted man, that governs on earth. And then we're going to go into 1,000-year millennium where he'll be in charge, he'll be reigning and ruling from Jerusalem. And then after that, we'll go to the everlasting Sabbath, the everlasting joy, rest. It's going to be wonderful. I can't wait. But I start thinking, I'm like, well, Moses died at 120. So this took me right to the story of Moses. I think this is pretty incredible. And Moses was 120 years old when he died. And if you don't know, that first saying right there, and Moses was 120 years old when he died, that was also his birth date. So Moses died and was born on the same day. And we'll get to that. And his eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. There's a huge mystery around Moses' death. It said God buried him personally, and no one knows to this day where his sepulcher is. But now he was at Jesus' transfiguration, and he's going to be one of the 2 witnesses in Revelation 11. So kind of something very interesting there. So now we go, and he's one of the 2 witnesses along with Elijah, who was raptured, by the way. So that's kind of another clue that I'm going to throw in there. So after Moses died, let me get to the right one here. Pass through, let's see. Oh, here. So after Moses died, and the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. So after 30 days, the weeping and mourning were over. Now Joshua is in charge. Now let me get my thing here. Sorry, I have a lot of... Is this the one? Right here, yeah. So now Joshua is in charge. The Lord made Joshua in charge of the Israelites. They're going to cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land. And that's typology, obviously. So Joshua 1:11 says, "Pass through the host and command the people, saying, Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days you shall pass over this Jordan to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it." All right, so they mourned for 30 days, then they had to wait for 30 days, and then they were going to cross into the Jordan, into the Promised Land. So there's a total of 33 days. Very interesting because, let's see, is this the one? That is not the one. Hold on. Oh yeah, it is. I'm sorry, that is the one. So we had a total solar eclipse on August 21st, 2017, and it's going to be, an X is going to cross that one on April 8th, coming up here in 3 months, 2.5 months, somewhere around there. But we had the Revelation 12 sign right in between, not right in between, but like right after that one, 33 days later, on September 23rd, 2017, there's the 33. Jesus died at 33, something with that number. And we just showed that Moses, the people after Moses' death, at 120 years old, God said your days will be 120. So that brought me right to Moses. And then I see this, they mourned for 30 days, and then God tells Joshua, hey, I'm going to give you 3 days to get yourself ready, and then you're going to cross into the Promised Land. So there's that 33 again. That tied me right to this time between the Revelation 12 sign and the total solar eclipse. So I'm like, okay, now we're tracking on the right path here. I think we're really onto something. All right, so now we go to, so this is where they're going to be crossing the Jordan. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Come not unto it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way heretofore. All right, so we have Moses in the desert for 40 years, dies at 120. Joshua was told to wait 3 days, and now there's a space between them and the ark, 2,000 cubits. Now, if you look at the story of Jesus, yes, he was tempted for 40 days, but he was also alive after his resurrection, or, here on earth, after his resurrection for 40 days, after 3 days, on the cross and being buried, and then he rose again on the third day. So there's your 3. Then he's on earth for 40 days. There's your 40 that Moses dealt with. Then there's a 2,000-year church age. Now in Joshua, they have a space between them and the ark, 2,000 cubits. So I said, well, this ties right into the story of Jesus' death and resurrection. So now we're definitely on the same path here. That this is an amazing path that we're going on with this story. Now we go here. So now we tied in, remember all those things that I showed you? The 11:11, same on the left, same on the right. Number, 3 candles on the left, 3 candles on the right. And then we all know this. The exact same number of days on the right, exact same number of days on the left. So I want you guys to see this, because I believe this is going to be the day of the rapture. This is where all this is going. John 11:9, and Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. Why would Jesus say that? And this is how Repo Man has built his entire calendar, I believe, was from this one day, and he built it out from there. Well, there's 12 hours of daylight, and there's 12 hours a night. Just like the 11/11, there's the same on the left, same on the right. Just like the eclipse going to January 11th, there's the same amount of days on the left, same number of days on the right. Just like the menorah, take away the servant candle, which lights all the other candles. You have 3 candles on your left, 3 candles on your right. Was God trying to show us that it's going to happen on the day of equal parts? Look at all the signs that we've gotten recently. It's all equal. Everything's divided perfectly right down the middle with the same on the left, the same on the right. And then the story of Lazarus, let's get into it. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. All right, I already did a video on this, but we'll go through it real quick. The 4 days represent those who died in Christ before the cross. All right, this would be Daniel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Abraham, all those from the Old Testament prophets and saints. That's representing them. All right, now we go here. When he had heard that Lazarus therefore was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. So that's after Jesus rose, from the grave. He spent 40 days on this earth, and he ascended into heaven, and then we had 2,000-year church age. That's what these 2 days represent. All right, so there's the 2. That's the 2,000 cubits that Joshua was instructed to follow behind the ark, and these are the 2 days in this story of the 2,000-year church age that is coming to a close very soon. Now let's go here. Then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. So 6 days, that's going to be the feast, the marriage supper of the Lamb. This is after the total end of the 6,000 years. Well, first we have to have a 7-year tribulation, right? Don't forget that Martha and Mary touched a dead body, and they were unclean for 7 days. So 7 days from the time that they laid him in the grave, they had to wait 7 days to get to that feast that Lazarus and Jesus were at. That was here. They made him a supper, and Martha served. She wouldn't have been able to do that if she didn't go through those 7 days. That's going to be like the 7-year tribulation. But Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with them. So he was dead. He was raised. And then now at the end of the 6,000 year is going to start the marriage supper of the Lamb before we go into the millennium for 1,000 years. So I hope you guys saw that timeline. Now, what does this have to do with Moses? We're going to tie it back into Moses now. Remember, he was 120 when he died, and his birth and death were on the same day. So to me, that's definitely saying something too. It's like the start and the end on the same. So it's kind of going with the same story here, that it's like the equal parts. And the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. So that's the 10th of Nisan, and encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. Now remember, so this is now they just crossed the Jordan. Now they're in the promised land that God told them. So it's the 10th of Nisan. So now we have to start doing a little bit of math here. Not much. Let's see. And the children of Israel wept. Well, let's not do that one first. Here we go. Pass through the host and command the people, saying, prepare you victuals, for within 3 days you shall pass over the Jordan to go in the promise, or possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. So you minus 3 days from 10th of Nisan. Now it's the 7th of Nisan. Now we go here. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. So you have to take 30 days from Nisan 7, you come to Adar 7. So the 7th day of the 12th month, or is it the 7th day in a leap year in the 13th month? So let's get to the calendar. Look at this. So 6 Adar, so I know the time difference between here, especially on the East Coast in Israel, is 7 hours. So when it's the day of equal parts here, it's going to be 7 Adar in Jerusalem. So out of all years, everything's lining up where it's equal on the left, equal on the right. Same amount of days on the left, same amount of days on the right. Sign after sign after sign is this perfect equal, equal parts, as you want to say. It's the day of equal parts. So it was God showing us in all days that God said, your days, let's go there one more time. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years old. Moses died at 120 years old on the dot, exactly. So this is tying in with Moses. And his death date, I just went through it, is 7 Adar, which happens to fall on the day of equal parts, March 16th, the day that never changes. And Repo showed you that in his video. And guess what? So if you're all into these Psalms happening to match up with the years, this would work out perfectly. Everything would still be right on the money. It's a perfect day for the rapture. And then look at my last couple videos. Remember I said he's going to turn their feast into mourning? Purim is not one of God's feasts. It's in the Bible, but it's not one of his feasts. He didn't command people to observe it. Look at 7 days later is Purim. And then, what was it, 24 days later, I believe it was, is the total solar eclipse on, actually, let's go there real quick so we can pull that up. So on Purim, we have a lunar eclipse, which we know is a bad omen for Israel. And that's when Purim falls on, is a lunar eclipse. And then 14 days later, on April 8th, we have a total solar eclipse marking the X over America. And a solar eclipse is not only bad for America, it's going to be bad for the world. All right, so is that going to be the start of judgment? I believe almost 100% that it's going to be, in my opinion. So just look at the timing of this. So we get raptured on the day of equal parts, March 16th, going into the 17th. God set this up perfectly. Remember we said it would be a spring rapture? 3 days later, and who knows if this calendar is off a few days, I believe that it is, we have the spring equinox. So now it's spring. The Psalms line up perfectly. 7 days later exactly is Purim. He's going to turn their feast in the morning, and then judgment on April 8th, 2024. I think it's incredible. I think everything that we've been seeing and we didn't fully comprehend, why we were all seeing 11:11 that matches perfectly on the left, perfectly on the right. The menorah, we've seen the menorah. What about this? The exact same amount of days on the left, the same amount of days on the right. Just like the day of equal parts, 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of darkness. It's perfect. God's been showing us this. The 120 years all tied into Moses. It's the story of Moses. The story of Moses and Joshua lines up exactly with the story of Jesus. The 3 days on 3 days on the cross, the death, burial, and resurrection. Then he spent 40 days here on earth. Then he ascended into heaven. Moses was 40 years in the desert. They were told to wait 3 days and then follow the ark 2,000 cubits. That's representing the 2,000-year church age that started after Jesus' time on the cross. So to me, it's a perfect story. It goes right in with Jesus. It matches everything perfectly. God said, I'll give you 120 years. Moses died at exactly 120 years. I think that was a sign that we needed to look at the story of Moses. And then the 33 days, remember they mourned for 33 days. And then God told Joshua, wait 3 days, get yourself ready, and then you're going to go into the promised land. Well, we just happened to have 33 days between a total solar eclipse and the Revelation 12 sign. Once again, I think it was tying us back to this story of Moses and Joshua. So let me know what you think. I think it's incredible. Put your prayer requests in the comments. I've been praying for you guys. Let's lift each other up in these last days, these perilous times that we're living in. God bless you. And if I don't see you again, I'll see you in heaven.